12:49 is the time, and you can join us in the studio actually at lbc.co.uk, because I'm joined by one of the very few people who sort of brings, I don't know quite what the word is, Ian McKellen. I don't want to say baggage, because that sounds like a negative, but you bring an aura with you. You are one of, I mean, your voice and your appearance, you are one of those people who everybody sort of thinks they know already.
Yes, particularly very young people. They're fans of Gandalf.
Yes.
And they have a very sophisticated view. I mean, they know that acting is acting. They know that I'm not the real Gandalf. I'm a little bit like the Father Christmas in the store. I'm not the real Father Christmas. I always knew that he wasn't. But that didn't stop me believing in the real Father Christmas. And that everyone knows that Gandalf is somewhere, and I'm just his representative. So I have lots of friends.
So it's of course a very deliberate move then for your latest role to move away from literary classics with whom everybody feels that they have a relationship and a degree of recognition, because your new film Mr. Holmes also sort of treads fairly iconic territory, doesn't it?
Yes, I know. I never thought I'd play Sherlock Holmes.
You can't imagine you'd play Gandalf either.
No, that's true. That's true. But I didn't know Gandalf as well as I knew Sherlock Holmes. I can't remember a time when I didn't know about Sherlock Holmes. I must have read the stories, or some of them, when I was a kid. And then there was a wonderful radio version with John Gielgud playing Sherlock Holmes. Not very well, with Orson Welles as Moriarty and Ralph Richardson as Watson. And then early television, Peter Cushing, didn't he play him? And Alan Weekly, I think, and Christopher Lee.
Yes.
Saruman has played him, and then the more recent versions, beginning with Jeremy Brett, I suppose he set the new marker of the dark Holmes, the worried man, the unhappy man, the man ill at ease with the world and trying to put it right. And that's a little bit the sort of
that's more the path you
territory I'm on. Yes, although he's very, very old now and retired enough.
Why am I explaining? You're in
it. Yes, he's living on the south coast. Beautiful location, filmed last summer, with his bees and his housekeeper Laura Linney, one of my favourite actors, and young Milo Parker, 10-year-old friend who plays a sort of Dr. Watson to my ancient Holmes.
And there's a sort of shadow of Alzheimer's as well in the story, isn't there, in the piece? Or at least a sort of form of...
It is a man fighting against his age and his declining abilities. And coming through, actually, and discovering, I think, a humanity that we hadn't suspected Holmes really had.
So yes, it's based on a novel, but quite loosely. It's one of those films that assumes a life entirely of its own.
Yes. It surprised me that I thought as we were making it, this is familiar territory. It's the Conan Doyle way of telling a story with the twist. And then when I saw it, it was unlike any other film I'd ever seen. It didn't remind me of anything. So I think that's a good thing. It is itself. But always with the reassurance that in the middle of it is this familiar man with a familiar name, but perhaps not quite the character you thought he was.
And around which everybody else sort of dances in a very elegant way. How do you pick your parts now? And would it be fair to say that you have, at this stage in your career, more choice than ever before? Or not?
Well, I suppose I do, but often a wonderful script will come and they don't have the money to make it, and it's going to be 2 years before they do. So, what seems to be an offer isn't actually always quite that. But the jobs I do are to make films or telly or be in a play that I would want to see myself as an audience. That's the first judgment. Then is it a part that I've already played in some other version? If it is, I won't want to do it. If it's something new and a bit challenging, that'll be it. And then who am I doing it with? And in this case, Bill Condon, who directed Gods and Monsters, that sort of set my film career going many years ago. And I'm surrounded by my mates, as Frankie did a tour, taking time off from Vicious to be in it. Frankie Barber's in the corner of it. Roger Allam, who played Abanazar to my widow Twanky at the Old Vic. And so I felt very comfortable and very much at home. It was a lovely job to do.
It comes across. Frances Barber is, I should mention, an absolute LBC addict, so she's almost certainly listening at the moment.
She should have her own programme.
Well, I'd be all for that, as long as she doesn't seek the mid-morning slot. My kids still need shoes. There's no room on that front. But you say that Gods and Monsters was ages and ages ago. It was only 1998 that it came out, and for you to say that that's where your film career started, younger listeners would sort of probably not be familiar with your status as a stage actor. I mean, you really were one of the great Shakespeareans.
No, I suppose not. Well, they'll have a chance to catch up with my stage acting when next year I'll be in the West End. Perhaps I'll come and talk to you about it then.
Yes.
With Patrick Stewart doing a Harold Pinter play, No Man's Land, that we did on Broadway last year. So I've not given up the theatre. Yes, I know. Some people say, "Oh, do you mind being known as Gandalf?" Of course, I don't mind being known as Gandalf. Why would I? And there are enough people who remember Macbeth and King Lear and Coriolanus and other things that I'm proud of. And so, I don't know. I just do the jobs I want to do, really.
With film, of course, it's permanent. It's there forever. You mentioned sort of three of the great tragedies. It's ethereal, however amazing and profound the experience is for the audience or the actor on the night.
Well, actually, two of the three I just mentioned are readily available on DVD. Macbeth with Judi Dench.
Yes,
and,
but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, they don't. Because they're recorded, they can still be seen. And but I do know what you mean, and that's the magic of theatre, and why sometimes you have to pay a lot of money to get a seat, because it is just for you tonight, not for anybody else. It'll just for this group of people. Yes. It's live, as we're live now. It goes into the ether, and tomorrow it'll be a memory and unrepeatable.
Are there any peaks unscaled? Are there any big parts you haven't had a crack at on stage that you'd like to?
No, there aren't really, and I've never had a list of things that I wanted to do, although I suppose I assumed that one day I would work my way through Shakespeare, which I seem to have done, and Chekhov very happily. I've been in practically all his plays. No, I most want to be in a new play, and the thing about films is that they're always new films, they're always new scripts. Very, very rarely do you get a remake, and even this Sherlock Holmes is unlike any other.
Well, I should stress it's a completely original piece. I mean, it is. You may well draw in sort of Benedict Cumberbatch fans, and they will go away happy and glad that they came to the cinema, but not having experienced necessarily quite what they were expecting.
No, it's quite different. But just as Benedict's Sherlock is quite different from Jeremy Brett's, which I used to love watching on Granada TV.
The sort of interesting talking to you and your perspective on young actors like that, because there's a lot of talk at the moment about a reverse. You sort of came through around the same time that the nature of British acting changed. The regional accent was no longer drilled out of you at RADA. People like Tom Courtenay and Albert Finney coming through. Yeah. So some mention, and they use Benedict Cumberbatch as an example of this, that things are possibly reversing at the moment. If you're not lucky enough to have had a public school education and enough money to survive in London without much work, acting is now a closed door to you.
Well, that is a point of view. That there are plenty of actors who didn't go to Eton and Harrow who are thriving. Martin Freeman, for example, and so I think the worry is vis-a-vis how much money your parents have got is that you may not be able to afford to go to a drama school and train as an actor. You won't be able to get a scholarship, so you're going to have to work very, very hard at night in the coffee shop, or you're going to have to lean on your parents. So that is a great pity and a problem, and it's a problem that could be solved by providing scholarships, which I think there should be.
And proper funding. And finally, we run out of time. You've barely sat down. You're also a publican, of course.
Well, there's that what it's called. Not a sinner. Yes, with Evgeny Lebedev and Sean Mathias, I have the license to the Grapes in Limehouse, just close to where I live, and we run a very tidy local boozer which gets visited by a lot of tourists who like looking at the river. And it's absolutely amazing. Business is thriving, and I drop in for the quiz on Monday night. And, but I'm not a drinker. I don't go to pubs normally, but it's it's always a little bit like walking onto a set for me. Oh, this is a set for a nice old English pub, isn't it?
I get that. I hope the next quiz night isn't inundated as a result of this revelation, and I hope we can find a little bit more time, Ian McKellen, when you do, I trust, come back to talk about the Pinter that you'll be doing with Patrick Stewart next year.
To see you again, yes.
Thank you very much indeed.